Today, I want to go through two big stories. Was the FBI sitting on the January 6th pipe bomb suspect? Have they been covering this up? Why did an $11 billion organization need a journalist to tell us the truth about this story? I also want to ask my guest about what he thinks will happen with John Brennan.
Mhm.
Ivan, thank you so much for joining me again.
Hey, thanks again for having me, Stephen. Yep, absolutely.
Absolutely. You're one of the most bold people I have ever seen in my entire life. I know you are a big fan of the truth. You're a Green Beret, so thank you here on Veterans
Yeah,
Day.
some folks don't like that boldness, and we can guess who those are. We're going
Yes,
to talk about one of them.
yes, we are. But Ivan is a former Green Beret, mega patriot for the United States, and a lawyer. So I was out of town when this big January 6th pipe bomber story broke. We've got this Capitol police officer who, Shawnee Ray Kirchhoff, who they are saying, based on algorithmic software, are able with 95% to say the person walking and delivering the pipe bomb has the same specific gait or fingerprint in her walk as this police officer. And then when you have human and analysts come on, they say it's a 98% match. So why has nobody been looking into this? Why are we now 5 years out and we're just learning about who the pipe bomber might be?
Let me answer that second question first. The second part. Why have we not gotten any information related to the pipe bomber? So, using the framework that I just laid out, if Nancy Pelosi was the one involved in essentially spearheading with a group of people such as her chief of staff, Terry McCullough, her senior advisor, Jamie Fleet, her daughter, Alexandra Pelosi, which was basically tethered to her side inside the Capitol doing a documentary, while her son in law, meaning Alexandra's husband, was on the outside of the Capitol coordinating events and activities on the outside, potentially maybe the guy involved in communicating directly with Ray Epps to give him direction, right? That's why they protect him potentially. Additionally, so if that is the theory of the case that you agree with, that's my theory of the case, then why would any Democrat in the institutions such as the FBI that is still controlled by the Jim Comeys and the Christopher Ray Eppses of the world? Yeah, you got Cash at the top, but everyone else is still loyal, in my opinion, to James Comey and Chris Wray, because there hasn't been a purge yet. A few people here and there have been fired, but everyone else is still pretty much the same individuals. And then same thing at the DOJ. Most of those people, if they're considered quote unquote Republicans at the DOJ, they're still loyal to the Rod Rosensteins of the world, right? And the Bill Barrs of the world. And we see how that plays. Or if they're more Democrat aligned, what are they? They're essentially aligned with Sally Yates and Eric Holder, right? And then even in the case of the head of HR and IT at DOJ, Miss Jolene Ann Loria, she's been there for what, 18 years as the comptroller, allocating all funds and resources on where to fund what and whom within the DOJ writ large, to include ATF, FBI, right? So when you look at it from that framework and you start to scrutinize every individual in the process, why would they want to get to the truth that it was a Fedsurrection? Because it would be committing suicide, right? So the way that they cover this up is very simple. This is the second statute I want to introduce you to when we talked in the first part. And that's 2 U.S. Code Section 1979, paragraph B again. That particular section of the U.S. Capitol Police's charter, if you will, the legal charter for it, lays out that the U.S. Capitol Police Board is what is the controlling arm and body that decides whether or not to release security information. Okay? So if the security information is exculpatory to, say, all January 6 defendants or any one of them, they can claim it's security information that will not be released. So one thing you can't do with the U.S. Capitol Police and their CCTV footage and anything else related to it, you can't FOIA it. The statute for FOIA is for the executive branch, okay? Not for the legislative branch. Number two, you can't go into court and ask the court to say, hey, have the legislative branch be compelled through Brady demands, meaning provide all exculpatory evidence to my defendant client. Guess what? They're going to claim same thing. 2 USC section 1979B prohibits that. Actually, it gives us discretionary authority on what we decide is security information and what is not, because Brady requests only apply to the prosecution, meaning the DOJ.
Let me ask you this. So, Cash Patel, Dan Bongino, they come in 4 years after this has happened. There's been all these investigations. I understand what you're saying. You're not going to find what you're not looking for. They're not going to look for something that incriminates them. Is that why they upped the bounty to $500,000? They were trying to get people to come out of the woodworks and rat on each other for that amount of money?
I think that my take on this is that the only entity that is in a position to actually get to the truth of January 6th based on their legal authorities and leverage to be able to get to it is to take control over the Capitol Police Board. And the executive branch cannot do that except for one vector. When JD Vance is presented with the following information and actually acts on it, this will be the fastest way to get to the truth of January 6th, especially the pipe bombs. But I would say for everything. JD Vance is a dual branch constitutional officer. On one side, he's the vice president, meaning the number 2 federal executive branch officer. And from that perch, he can direct and make a public press conference standing next to him Cash Patel, Pam Bondi, DNI Tulsi Gabbard, Secretary Noem for DHS equities, and then Secretary Hegseth for DOD equities, because that pretty much covers all the equities related to what people have investigated about January 6th and decisions that were done by the executive branch leadership in the previous fake administration to look at all decisions and communications between the DOD and the legislative branch, the DHS and the legislative branch, the DOJ, FBI and the legislative branch, and the intel community and the legislative branch. And on the separate note, his second role as a constitutional legislative branch officer, he is the president of the Senate, meaning he's the senior constitutional officer of the United States Senate. Why is this important? Again, when you look at Chapter 29 of Title 2 of the U.S. Code, it lays out the Capitol Police Board. And the Capitol Police Board consists of 3 voting members and 1 non-voting member. The 3 voting members are the House Sergeant at Arms, the Senate Sergeant at Arms, the Architect of the Capitol, and the non-voting member is the Capitol Police Chief. So of those 3 voting members, every year there's an alternating individual that is the chair of that Capitol Police Board with an outsized influential position. One year it's the House Sergeant at Arms, the next year it's the Senate Sergeant at Arms, and it rotates back and forth between those 2 sergeants at arms. This year, through January 3rd at noon, is the Senate Sergeant at Arms, who is the chair of the Capitol Police Board. Her name, Jennifer Hemingway. And she used to work for Paul Ryan, as a side note, as Director of Ops when he was Speaker. But I digress. So the current Senate Sergeant at Arms can be told by JD Vance that guess what? You, and oh, by the way, Mike Johnson, while you're standing next to me as the Speaker, and your Sergeant at Arms, Bill McFarland, who was appointed by originally Kevin McCarthy, but that's just an asterisk. I mean, this is the level of detail I know this situation, okay? And so if you bring in the 2 sergeants at arms, the Speaker of the House and the Senate Majority Leader and the President of the Senate, and you basically hold a press conference saying, you know what we're going to do? We're going to get to the bottom of January 6th, and we're going to demand that the Capitol Police Board direct the General Counsel of the U.S. Capitol Police, Thomas Aquinas DeBias, to release anything and everything related to his involvement in all communications between the legislative branch, Capitol Police, the U.S. Attorney's Office, DHS, the White House, the Department of Defense, the FBI, et cetera, ATF, everything. And when you see all that, his communications, his text messages, his Twitter DMs, his Twitter interactions. By the way, he nuked his account after the election because he's on my deep state target list. Many people nuke their accounts because they know we're coming for them with or without the administration. Because we have Steve Bakers and Ivan Raiklin's of the world that are going to be doing the work of this government, whether they're going to participate or not. So to summarize, if JD Vance grows a pair, sacks up, and has a press conference publicly outing that in my dual branch role, I'm calling on the release of all executive branch communications with the legislative branch. And in my president of the Senate role, I'm calling on the chair of the Capitol Police Board to direct the release of everything J6 related from the general counsel of the U.S. Capitol Police, while Speaker Mike Johnson releases, along with Loudermilk, everything, all communications of Jamie Raskin. Yeah, baby. And release everything from the J6 committee, particularly the role and communications of the staff director, David Buckley, who was one of the 51 spies who lied. You are going to see in full 8K fidelity the Fedsurrection planning, operational execution, actions on the objective, all the different subcomponents to it, and then its subsequent cover-up. And there you have on a silver platter with gold lining and diamond like perimeter, America, here's your Fedsurrection. Now the jury pool will be ready to go completely apoplectic when it comes time to convict every single person involved in that Fedsurrection, starting with Nancy Pelosi.
Do you think it's a a coincidence that she retired within 24 hours of them saying that this Capitol Police officer is alleged to be the pipe bomber?
So two things. One, I want to go into detail on this. I don't come to the same conclusion yet as Steve Baker does, and I'll explain why. But
Okay.
even having said that, she may have thought that I would say this: if you're Nancy Pelosi, and we're going to get to the truth regardless of whether this FBI or the last FBI, it doesn't matter what the government's going to do. There's enough of us that have been harmed by the previous and even elements of the current administration that we will get the truth out. Okay. And I think she's at the point of her career that, you know what, maybe I should just duck and cover so that the toxic, feckless, coward Republicans, she knows they're toxic and feckless and cowardly, they're just going to forget about it and say, oh, you know what? Yeah, it was a Fedsurrection. Sorry, move on. Let's get some more funding from Big Pharma as we continue the political Republican and Democrat apparatus moving forward so that no one's held to account for slaughtering and murdering and genociding people due to the COVID products. But I can't say that on your CommieTube channel, so you might want to deal with that somehow. But apparently they're saying you can say that stuff now, right?
Yeah, some of it. I don't think anything you said will shock my audience or YouTube. Let me switch gears with you.
If I may, just to close this out. Here's what happened in the sequence of events last week. You said you were in, was it Florida?
Florida.
When this all happened? So there was a kind of a tease by Mr. Baker that said that, you know, I have bombshell evidence and whatnot, and he's working for the Blaze. So he's got a bigger platform for the lemming normies to be able to realize that, oh my gosh, it was a Fedsurrection or whatever you want to call it. He teased it out, and then he put out that he was going to slow walk it and delay it at the advice of counsel and, I guess, government officials. My take on that was interesting. Counsel. Probably the original draft had a little bit more direct and poignant allegations against this individual that legal counsel for the Blaze was not comfortable with that being published, because then the risk for defamation is very high should there be an inaccuracy, right? And so what we saw in the actual disclosure of it, when I read it, I thought that it was caveated enough that it's not directly saying that it is her, but the unfortunate consequences of that is the lower IQ, uncritical kind of fly by the seat of your pants Twitterati influencers take that and then take an analytic judgment, meaning a confidence level with a percentage of confidence in a particular analytic judgment, they take that and carry it as it being 100%. So those that do that place themselves, I think, at potential legal liability risk if this individual is not the actual person that was assessed to be a likely hit for being the pipe bomber.
Yeah.
And so having seen this and knowing what the likely individual would be in that, all I did was post. I think I may have been the first one to post. It was to Cash and to Dan, subject 500,000. And all I did was post a picture screenshot of an individual that was 5'7" and a soccer player. No allegations in relationship to the pipe bomber other than, Cash and Dan may want to question this individual as just another lead to find out whether or not this person knows anything about the pipe bomb. That was kind of my intent. And apparently that, I think, motivated the Blaze and Mr. Baker to actually release what they had. Because at the end of the day, I mean, everyone always talks about, oh, just wait for it. Everyone's got a plan in time. No, we've already out of time, right? So I like to push so that people put out what the evidence that they have. Unfortunately, though, the negative part of that is that when you look at the article, the original article, it doesn't really show the math that was done to come to that conclusion. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Have you seen anything where Mr. Baker shows the actual math and analytic process that they used to come, what software was used, what type of factors are used in determining and limiting a pool of individuals so it narrows it down to that person? I haven't seen the math. So I can't agree with him at his level of confidence that this is the individual that is allegedly the pipe bomber. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying that with what I know and what I've seen, as it applies to this individual, I can't place the same level of confidence that he has placed. And I'm speaking as somebody that has taught for years intelligence analysis and the analytic process and critical thinking and hypothesis. I mean, all the different components of intelligence analysis. So I can't come to the same conclusion with that level of confidence.
Okay.
But I hope he's right.
Yeah. But okay. So then sticking with that as a lawyer, as you mentioned, the Blaze is really sticking their neck out there. If they're wrong, this is going to be a massive lawsuit against them. I would think that they have.
I don't think so.
No?
Because
Okay.
the way it was written, I mean, the argument for, let's just play this out hypothetically. The argument in defense of the Blaze is that everything that was put out is not definitive. It's just it's a hypothesis. It's an analytic assessment, right? Based on the tools that were used. So it's not a definitive accusation. Those that actually said it was a definitive based on that reporting, I would say that they are more at a legal risk. But the counter argument is that, well, you put it out so much. And again, there's arguments for everything. So we'll see how this plays out. Bottom line here is, I think the bigger story here that isn't being focused in on is where, and I'm going to quote Chief Stephen Sund. He tweeted out yesterday, and he was on one of the lesser, weak, cowardly programs. I think they're pronounced Newsvax, right? That caved to a couple things, to include the illegal 2020 election. So I have no respect for them. There's some people that I know over there, but the organization was cowardly. As an aside there, Chief Stephen Sund essentially said, it's 3 days now. Where is Kash Patel? Where is Dan Bongino? Where is the FBI? Huh?
Yeah.
Where is Congressman Barry Loudermilk? Where is chairman of that subcommittee? He's the chairman of the subcommittee. Where is Jim Jordan, who's the chair of the committee that's above the subcommittee? Where is Speaker Mike Johnson to make a statement on this? Where is the Capitol Police Board? the House Sergeant at Arms, Bill McFarland, the Capitol Police Chief. Okay. Where are their statements? Where's the chair of the Capitol Police Board statement? You get my point, right?
Yeah.
It's not only Cash, because Cash, even if he's good faith acting and everything he's doing and not in China to be leveraged, just like the Biden criminal syndicate was. And if he's a good faith actor, it'd be nice to hear from him and all the rest of the people that I just explained.
Yep. Completely agree. Let me show you what Glenn Beck said on his radio show. I can't tell whether he is saying, hey, everyone deserves their time in court, or if they are backpedaling a little bit. But let me play that for you in the audience.
So Blaze News arranged for a forensic gait analysis. This isn't guesswork. This is a scientific algorithm that compares the knee flexing, the hip extension, the step length, the cadence, and variance. It's like a digital footprint of how a person moves through space. Well, the software returned a 94% match between the bomber's walk and that of the walk of a former Capitol Police officer who I'm not going to name here. And I'll tell you why I'm not going to name her here. When the analysts that were human, they looked at it, they put the match closer to 98%. Now, let me stop here and tell you why I'm not telling you the name of this person, because a match is not guilt. A comparison is not proof. This person of interest is still a citizen whose life carries the same dignity and presumption of innocence as yours and mine. And I can't tell you what is true in this story yet.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what is true in this story yet or not.
Do you think he's trying to offload some of the liability, or do you think he's trying to say there's a lot here, FBI, for you guys to chew on?
Let me say it this way. Remember, let me ask this. I'm gonna answer this in questions. I have to do it this way, and you'll probably understand why. How many times did Glenn Beck have Kash Patel on his show interviewing him? At least once, right?
At least once.
You remember that, where he went into a deep dive, went pretty viral?
Yes.
So then it begs the question, what relationship does Glenn Beck have with Kash Patel? What would be your assumption?
I would assume
that they have.
I would assume he could reach him with one text or one call.
Okay, I would agree with that assumption. Again, we're dealing. I want to be clear. This is an assumption. I don't have anything to back it up. So then, if that is the assumption that we're going to base it off of, if you were Kash Patel, what would you tell or ask Glenn Beck after that article came out? After it came out and before Glenn Beck stated what he just stated, if he were to send something to Glenn Beck, what would that sound like? Give me some thoughts and ideas.
Hey, this thing that you just described on your show, share that with us. Who were the humans that said 98%? What was the software that said 94%? Why else are you naming this soccer player / former police officer? Those would be some of the things I might be curious about.
Okay, those are some hypotheses, right, of potentials. Is it possible that he could be something to the effect of, again, I'm just throwing out ideas here. You need to remove Steve Baker. Is that a possibility? Is it within the realm of possibility to do that?
Yes.
And if that is received by Glenn Beck and his loyalties are to his organization, right? And he's listening to that request from Mr. Patel. Again, this is totally hypothetical. What would be the next steps? Glenn Beck has to walk it back a little bit, right? And he says, I don't know anything about what was the last thing he said? I didn't hear this. So this is massive to me. Can you play literally the last sentence that he said?
Yeah,
last maybe 2-3 seconds?
Yeah.
Still a citizen whose life carries the same dignity and presumption of innocence as yours and mine. And I can't tell you what is true in this story yet.
I can't tell you what is true in this story yet. To me, that sounds that he's basically saying, I don't know if anything is true in that story. It might 100% be bogus. So then what happens to Steve Baker? Let's play this out.
Yeah.
If the director of the FBI asks Glenn Beck, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah. I mean,
You'll see indications of it in the coming days if I'm even remotely close. Sorry?
The Blaze is going to do what they have to do to protect the Blaze.
Right. And so obviously that would be, if this is incorrect, then the individual is going to go after the biggest pockets, right? They can go after some of the influencers that basically are saying, oh, it's 100% this person or not. I've never mentioned her name. I put I put out a tweet with a screenshot, but I've also put out other ones saying, hey, Cash, Dan, subject 500,000 K. And then I put other pictures or pieces of content out because guess what? They may want to talk to those individuals as well without alleging anything. Right. And so I've been accused as being the pipe bomber for years now amongst the Twitterati. And I find it very amusing that I'm always somehow ensnared into the conversation. And I guess I gotten to a point where I think at this point, I was kind of waiting on someone to come out with the actual individual, because then at that point, it'd be easy to file a defamation lawsuit and then force settlement once it's pretty abundantly clear it's not me, right? Because then I have more leverage. And I think we're getting close. I thought we were getting close based on this analysis of Steve Baker, but what you just played right now changes my calculus. I may have to wait a little bit for my defamation lawsuits against every single person that has accused me of being the pipe bomber. Not accused. They basically say 100% with definitive confidence. Okay. And you can look on X to see who those individuals are. They know who they are. And I just don't know if it's really worth it because I doubt they have any financial means. But if they do, if they have an insurance policy, then we'll go ahead and zeroize that insurance policy just as another vector of a revenue stream for the Department of Retribution and our efforts here at Retribution headquarters.
I had no idea. I had no idea you had been accused. That's pretty wild. Okay, let me leave the January 6th thing for a second.
Does that make sense? Because I want to make it clear that while he may be right, my stance is while he may be right, I'm talking about Baker, I can't come to the same conclusion. And now with what Glenn Beck said, we shall see how it plays out. And I've done further analysis, if you will, of this individual. And I'll leave it at that in a very substantive level. So as Steve Baker comes out with his things or not, I'm ready on standby to release much more information and other names in the vicinity of the individual that they are alleging. But it's premature right now because I haven't seen his math and I don't want to be a party to being incorrect, right?
Yeah, no, that's how I feel. If this is the person, I want accountability. If it's not, I do not want their name ruined, death threats, none of that,
Yeah, because they did that to me. I mean, Arctic Frost. I was the target of 4 subpoenas by Jack Smith via Trump's 4 fundraising organizations, right? And that was back in February 2023. No one told me about it. They didn't reach out to me, lawyers, or anybody else that was on that list of about 20 people. And I'm talking directly like Susie Wiles and Chris LaSavita ran those PACs and campaign fundraising platforms, knew about the subpoena, but didn't even bother to have their attorney let us know about it so we could. I mean, imagine if I knew the names of the FBI agents, the assistant special counsel, and that Jack Smith was targeting me, Stephen. What do you think I would do? I would immediately investigate them at the same level they're investigating me. Would have had a 2.5-year head start. And it would have been glorious because I have ways to look through people's lives because of my network and relationships.
Yeah. Okay, let me set the January 6th aside. I promise my audience some John Brennan content. We've got about 14 minutes left before this software turns off. What he's been criminally referred now. His name has been thrown out as being up there with Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, being in the Oval Office. What do you think will happen with John Brennan?
All right, so the criminal referral came from the United States House of Representatives. So far, there has not yet been a criminal indictment. I'm hearing through the grapevine, and I always ask the question, how do these people even know the inner workings to get this information that supposedly they're, who's leaking, right? Who's leaking to these reporters, even on our side, supposedly, right? That there's a grand jury in place to go after good old Brennan. Now, I'm for that. But to get him on lying to Congress, I mean, that's like jaywalking compared to what he's been doing the last 11 years. I mean, we're talking wholesale treason going back to 2014 when, remember, the auto pen goes back to the 2014 era. And the reason why it does is because John Brennan, when he was a CIA director, was essentially the guy that went out to, as the ADVON, if you will, advanced party for the Biden criminal syndicate to Ukraine and Kiev to tee up Hunter Biden to sit on the board of Burisma, right? In order to get 10% for the big guy, meaning Joe, for that 10% boilerplate deal that was later, again, replicated in China via Tony Bobolinsky's disclosures with the 10% China scheme. So going back to Brennan, Brennan was the CIA director during this entire period and leveraged his London station liaison, the chief of station at the time, Gina Haspel, with London liaison to go ahead and target over 20 members of the Donald Trump campaign, okay, to illegally spy on them. In addition to that, coordinating with Jim Comey with the whole Crossfire Hurricane op to go ahead and get a FISA warrant, defraud the FISA court at a minimum through a fraudulent email by Kevin Kleinsmith, as well as the analysis of the supervisory intel analyst on Crossfire Hurricane, which was Brian Auten. But I don't want to go into too many of those names in detail. Bottom line here is John Brennan is the architect of Russia hoax. He then is one of the key signatories to the 51 Spies Who Lied letter. He and his inspector general, when he was CIA director, David Buckley, were signatories to that 51 Spies letter. David Buckley was the one that was the staff director for the January 6th Political Persecution Committee. John Brennan's fingerprints are on every single aspect of the cover-up after escalatory cover-up, concluding with the J6 Fedsurrection, probably more so than anybody else. He is the central figure with Jim Comey in that what hopefully ends up being that overarching RICO treasonous conspiracy that we are hearing about, indicators of, that potentially is going to be impaneled via a jury down in Fort Pierce, Florida in January. John Brennan and Jim Comey are, we're talking about the number 1 and number 2 draft picks in my entire deep state target list, along with Nancy Pelosi. And I have about 1,500 individuals on that list. So they're pretty critical. I would say this. If you were a betting man, was it Polymarket and all this other stuff? And the bet was, is Ivan Raiklin going to be at the indictment of John Brennan? Since this is a family-friendly show, I'm going to say it this way. You bet your ass I'm going to be there.
So so now, they get Comey on the same thing, lying to Congress before they run out of the statute of limitation time. Do you think that they might lead with something simple on Brennan and then go deeper like they are now on Comey?
Well, when you say the words they, I refer to, the question should be asked, does Pam Bondi, the U.S. attorney in the respective district, for example, if it's going to be an Alexandria Division, Eastern District of Virginia, does Miss Lindsay Halligan, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, do they have the stones to go ahead and conduct a very transparent live streamed audience raid arrest of John Brennan? And I would answer that to say no, because they're coward cucks, all of them. Okay. Now, it would be nice for them to at least use a portion of the precedent set by the radical domestic terrorist Democrats, meaning what they did to Roger Stone, right? What they did to Steve Bannon, what they did to Peter Navarro, what they did to even Mike Lindell, where they just seized his assets, right? Even for John Bolton, they just delicately walked around and said, Mr. Bolton, please, Your Highness, can we take one of your devices from you or a few? Please, sir, please don't berate me, sir. I beg you. I know you conducted treason, but please, oh, humbly, we request. What did they do to Jim Comey? Jim Comey, can you please just go and report to the arraignment for your indictment? I beg you, sir. You'll continue to run the FBI. Don't worry, because we're going to let you off scot-free as you continue to coordinate and manage your previous FBI when you were the director, because you have all their contacts and they're all employees still at the FBI. We'll let you continue to treason as long as you just show up to the arraignment for your indictment. That's what this coward, cuck, insignificant, completely captured Department of Justice is doing. Meanwhile, it's convincing all these low IQ voters that voted for the same person that I did that something is happening. Nothing is happening. It's all kabuki theater. Just like the investigation into the pipe bomber, it is all kabuki theater. The only way we get to the truth and hold these people to account is, unfortunately, we will have to do it ourselves. And so far, I've operated in the legal, moral, ethical, peaceful, and patriotic realm. But America's patience continues to wear thin. And I said last year on January 6th by this Criminal News Network reporter, when he asked me, if we don't see someone hung for treason after 12 months, he asked me if I would be disappointed. And I responded with, the nation will be furious. Use your imagination and your creative thinking skills of what that means when a populace is apoplectic furious for inactions by an administration that they voted for. And the number one reason why they voted for that administration is to hold traitors to account. I don't know that this administration survives past a year, because the Democrat governor in Virginia and the Democrat AG in Virginia is going to do what Fani Willis, Alvin Bragg, Letitia James, and Jack Smith were going to do starting in January when they are sworn in to office. There you go. So we currently have a lame duck that has less than 60 days to course correct. And if he doesn't, I pray for him and wish him safety.
Yeah. Wow.
And the rest of his team.
Yeah. Well, Ivan, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your thoughts and opinions backed up by all the research that you're doing. If people want to follow you online, where can I point them towards?
Well, if they do it on this platform, CommieTube, they're probably going to have to go through training to get their channel back. That's happened before. But if you want to go to a free speech platform like X, semi-free speech, then I'm on Ivan Raiklen, Substacks, Locals, Telegram, Rumble. Those are the preferred platforms while they allow us to speak freely. But you've managed to survive.
I've managed to survive.
And thrive.
Well, thank you very much for coming on.
I appreciate you having me on again, Stephen.
I'll put those links to those other platforms. Thank you for coming on. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yes, sir. Thank you. You too.